table? Table is defined as a systematic and orderly arrangement of information, facts, or data using rows and columns for presentation. That is table. It is done so to make it easier for better understanding. In order to understand the data very well, to make it more clearer and easier, that is the reason for presentation of table. For example, let's look at this table. This table below represents the quantity of books demanded in a school in relation to the price. You can see the price in a column and the quantity of books demanded in the following column, the other column. So that is a sample of table. Then, what are the characteristics of table? It must be very simple and easy to understand. It must not be complicated at all. It must be simple and easy to understand. Then it must have title or heading. What is the table talking about? We must give the table a caption that this table is talking about this particular issue. Then it must contain rows and columns. It must have at least 2 rows and 2 columns before we can refer to it as table. Then it must be numbered if there are many. If we have more than one table, it must be numbered. Like, oh, this is table number 1, this is table number 2. Then the purpose of table must be stated. We must give the reason why we are presenting the table. Why is it? It's not just to wake up and draw table. No, there must be purpose for it. Then let's look at the importance of table. What are the importance of table? Table helps us to summarize data that we are to present. It helps us to summarize the whole data. We can have a voluminous data, but when we present it in a table, it will make it in kind of summary. It will give us a clearer picture of the data. The next one, another importance is that it assists in an orderly arrangement of data. It helps us to arrange the data orderly, one after the other, and to make it clearer. Then it is comparison between the classes of data. We can have different classes of data. So from table, when we present it in a table, we'll be able to compare which one to the other. Then it helps us to understand the data better. Instead of giving it in a raw form, table will have separated them and arranged them orderly. Then also, another important is that it helps us to make decisions. Once you'll be able to compare and you'll be able to identify which one belongs to which one, making decision will not be difficult again. Those are the importance of table. Then other tools that we use is what we call charts or graph. This is a diagram representing a system of connection or interrelation among 2 or more variables by a number of distinctive dots or lines or bars or etc. That is chart or graph. The information presented on table can be translated into graph for better understanding. When we want to see the flow of the data or the move of the data, we can put it in a chart or in a graph. For example, look at this. This is an information that has been transferred from table and transformed to chart or graph. This is an example of data, of graph or chart. Then, what are the features, the characteristics of graph or chart? It must have a title just like that of table. Then it must possess appropriate scale. That is the scale from one point to the other. It must have that also. Then all graphs should have x-axis on the horizontal and y-axis on the vertical side, because we are comparing 2 variables. So one variable will be on the y-axis, which is vertical, and the other variable will be on the x-axis, which is horizontal. Then it must be labeled properly. Each point must be labeled properly for us to see it clearly and know which information is at a particular point or the other. Then the other characteristic is that the unit of measurement must be shown clearly, whether on the y-axis, whether the unit of measurement is 5 centimeters from one point to the other, or on the x-axis, whether the unit of measurement is 10 centimeters from one point to the other. It must be stated clearly so that we better understand it. Then another feature is that y and x-axis must carry different variables. It's not to combine the same variable, 2 variables on the same axis. No, one variable must be on y-axis, the other variable must be on x-axis. These are the features, the characteristics of graph or chart. Then what are the importance? The importance of chart or graph, that it helps us to show relationship between two variables. The variables on the y-axis, the variables on the x-axis. We'll be able to see the relationship between the two of them. Then it helps us to interpret the value of variables. Then another important is that it provides basis for comparing variables provided in the table. It will help us to compare the two. Then it will help us to understand the changes in the variable. As the variable is changing from one point to the other, graph will help us to understand it as well. But graph and chart, we have different types. These are the types. We have pie charts. The next one, we have bar charts. We also have histogram. We have multiple bar charts. We have line charts, and so on. Let's take them one by one. When we talk of pie chart is a type of graph, it's a type of chart in which circle is divided into sectors. When we draw a circle and we try to divide it into different sectors, maybe into 2, 3, 4, or as many as possible, that is what we refer to as pie chart. Each sector represents a proportion of the whole. Each of the sector will represent a proportion of the whole data or the information. Then the slice or sector illustrates the numerical proportion. The slice or the sector of each of the circle will represent a proportion of the information that we are comparing and we are presenting. In a pie chart, the arc length of each slice is proportional to the quantity of the quantity it represents. Each sector will have the slice that will represent the quantity that it represents. The sector from each point represents a quantity that the sector is representing. The whole circle represents 360. Each sector, if it's divided into two, that means each sector will be representing 180. But if it's divided into 4, that means each sector will be representing 90 each. And it can be lesser, it can be greater. So each sector will represent the proportion of the number that the variable is talking about. This is an example of a chart. We can see it represents the sales of cotton candy of an age. Then we have one of under 20, we have one of 13 to 19 years, we have one of 20 to 29, we have one of 39 to 40, 30 to 39, and 40 to 49, then 50 to 59, and 60 and above. You see now from this place, we have like how many sections? We have like 7 sections of the circle, which represent proportion of the numbers that each of them represent. Then, what is bar chart? Which is the second chart that we are looking at. Bar chart is a graph that represents group data in rectangular bars. It's different from circle or pie chart that we just treated. This one is in form of rectangles, but we use it as a bar so much that the length and the proportion of the value to the value of the chart represent each bars. The value that each bars will be representing is what is put on each of the bars. The bars can be plotted vertically and horizontally. The vertical bar is sometimes called column bar, and this is an example. We can see it is painted in different colors, with different colors, so as to make it distinct and clear to the viewers. Then we have histogram. Histogram is used for continuous data. The bin represent ranges of data, and the areas of the rectangle are meaningful. Why a bar chart is a plot of categorical variable, and discontinuity should be indicated by having gaps between the rectangle from which only the length is meaningful. This is an example of an histogram. You can see that it looks like that of bar chart, but the difference there is that there is no gap in between the bars of the histogram. That is the major difference that differentiates it, because it talks about the continuity of the data. It's not the one that will separate each variable from the other, but it's talking about the continuity of the data. Then let's look at the multiple bar chart. Multiple bar chart is a bar chart in which multiple data are represented by drawing the bars side by side in a cluster. The multiple bar diagram, two or more set of interrelated data that represents an information. The multiple bar chart it comprises two or more data on the same bar, so much that it represents a different categories, different levels of the data. The multiple bar diagram facilitates comparison between more than one phenomenon, more than one situation over a particular period of time. The techniques of simple bar chart is used to draw the multiple bar chart as well, but the difference there is used to differentiate different segments, different angle, and different areas of the information that we are talking about. Look at example of the multiple bar chart. It looks like that of the bar chart, but we can see that there are different segments of each of the information we are trying to present here. The average, this one represents the average weekly network load. We can see that in each of the information, each of the bars, as grouped together, there are